So I like to consider myself a jack of all trades and a master of none. If I watch enough YouTube videos, there's not very many things that I can't do or screw up in the process. One of the things that I have done over the years is take things that are either broken or they're diamonds in the rough and restore them. When Lydia and I were married and forming our house and then having kids and we needed more and more furniture to accommodate our needs, back in those days you could just about go to any thrift store and find a decently quality made piece of furniture very cheaply. Many of them with 5, 6, 7 coats of paint on them, and strip all that down and sand it all and restore them. Last year ago during COVID, I had bought from Susan Harrison a couple waterfall end tables from the 1950s that were in pretty rough shape, and I meticulously and slowly restored those. And then Lydia and I were out at a salvage place, and she has always wanted a Stingray, Swin Stingray bicycle. And so I found one, a little chick from 1976, and so bought it for like $25 and watched a ton of YouTube videos and learned how to restore all the mechanisms and everything, and restored it to decent condition. But in all of my restoration projects, there is always, I can never get something back to showroom quality. I can never get it to like new. There's always imperfections. There's a dent in the fender of the bicycle. I restored this little tailor-taught stroller, and the colors aren't quite right, and it's maybe missing a couple pieces on it. And you can tell where, if you look closely, where there's imperfections, where I had to replace veneer on the furniture. So never back to total perfection on the restoration projects. But I like to think that in the examples in the gospel reading, that Jesus is the perfect restorer. He's the one that restores things back to perfection. We start off today with Jesus has gotten this reputation of being a great healer and exorcising demons and all this. So he's gathering crowds of people who all they want to do is to see, they want to witness these miracles that Jesus is doing. They don't necessarily have the faith, but and some of them do, but some of them are just there to just watch and to see. You know, they're just like an audience, but they're crowding around Jesus. But then we have this Jairus, who's the leader of the synagogue. The thing about Jairus in the synagogue is he is considered an administrator. He's like the president of the local synagogue. So he has great power and authority over what's done and not done. And Jesus, by this time, has gotten a rather bad reputation of not following Jewish law, and he's starting to be shunned from the synagogues. So Jairus is taking great risk to go and see Jesus, but he's desperate. He's desperate for his daughter. He doesn't want to see his daughter die, so he's thinking to himself, yeah, I can go to this Jesus, and if all that I've heard about him is correct, then I've got this faith that he can restore her to health. So Jairus is taking great risk. He's taking the authority that he has of being the synagogue leader and putting that at risk. His reputation is at risk for even approaching Jesus and asking Jesus for help. But like he said, he's so desperate, it's his last resort. So he goes to Jesus, and Jesus is willing to follow along. Well, like I said, Jesus has got all these crowds around him, and people wanting to just touch him and things. And all of a sudden this woman comes up who's had this infirmity, this bleeding disease for 12 years. And she was a woman of great means. She'd gone to all these doctors and said she had spent all that she had. So, and I'm imagining that's quite an amount of money that she had, she tried everything. She was desperate for Jesus to help her out. And she has such great faith like Jairus, and this really put that all at risk, because she would have been considered unclean. She would have been like a leper, where she would have had to have gone through the crowd. She shouldn't even have been in the crowd. She should have yelled, unclean, unclean, if anybody. But she thought, if I could just get to Jesus through that crowd and touch him, I know that I will be made well. So she has that touch of faith, where in her faith, and remember, all of those people that are just gawkers and in an audience, they don't have that faith, but she does. All I got to do is touch Jesus, and I'll be restored. And she feels that power going through her body, and Jesus feels it going out of his body. It's a thing that, for us, Jesus says to us that to gain our life, we have to lose our life. To gain our life, we have to lose our life. And I think it's a truth that whenever we make the decision to help somebody, every act of kindness that we show to somebody else is time taken away from ourselves. But yet, we lose a little bit of ourselves every time that we take the time to help somebody else. And we can be selfish with our time. But as Christians and followers of Jesus, we know that we get that time back, that we draw closer and closer to Jesus with every act of kindness that we have for somebody else. And so Jesus, he performs this restoration of this woman. She is shunned in society. So he's restored, not only restored her to health, but he's restored her to total wholeness and to wholeness in society. So now she can go back to living a normal life again. She doesn't have to shun the crowd. She doesn't have to yell, unclean, unclean. So then these people come and they say, Jairus, don't bother the teacher anymore. Notice they say teacher instead of healer. And they said, oh, your daughter's dead, so no need for Jesus anymore. See, Jesus says, don't worry about it. And then he goes and says, oh, she's not dead, she's just sleeping. Well, all of these professional mourners, that are there, weeping and wailing because that's what they do, is, they're just laughing at Jesus. Oh, no, she's dead. You're crazy for thinking she's not. But I like that in the NRSV, Jesus says she's not dead but sleeping. But in other translations, it says she's not dead, she's only sleeping. I'm reminded of, and I might have mentioned this before, and in fact I based a whole presentation on only sleeping, that in the graveyard that I grew up in behind my house, there was one tombstone. I've never found another tombstone like it. That on that tombstone, below the person's name, it says only sleeping. And I think it comes from this passage. And for the longest time as a child, I didn't understand what that meant, that only sleeping. But that is resurrection hope. It's hope that, when we die, that our bodies go to the ground, but we have this hope of a resurrected and a new life. So we're sleeping in Jesus, waiting for that, with Jesus in heaven, waiting for that resurrection to happen. So Jesus commands this little girl to, wake up, to come up, arise. So the girl is immediately, she is just up and she is dancing around and she's, she's hungry, she's ready to eat. Just exactly like when Peter's mother-in-law was on the verge of death. And it says that Jesus, healed her, she got up and she started making supper for everybody. Now, how many of you, when you're sick, Diane, when you're sick, feel better, do you get up and make supper for, well, you probably make supper while you're sick. I know you.
I try not to.
Yeah. So the little girl is restored to wholeness. She's restored to the potential of womanhood because she's 12 years old. She's right on the cusp of being a woman. And she's restored to her family, to the father-daughter relationship. And then Jairus is restored to his dignity because, you know, whatever they say about him and his faith in Jesus, he can say, look, my daughter is well. So, yeah, whatever you want to say, you know, about me and my relationship with Jesus, here's my daughter as proof. We desire ourselves complete wholeness and healing in life. But we're kind of like furniture that, yeah, Jesus can do miracles even today, but most of the healing that we see that takes place is not perfect healing, not that perfect healing, because we're still broken people. We're still under that curse of Adam and Eve, and we still have this aging process and eventual death. Even if we, you know, die and are brought back to life, like Bill over here. We're still, you know, subject to eventual death. Or like Lazarus. You know, Lazarus was brought back from the dead, but yet he was going to return to death again, but have resurrection in Jesus Christ. But we have part of that power of Jesus within us, that we can touch people's lives, and we can be like restoration people to help people to get a sense of dignity and wholeness back into their life again. People that have disabling diseases or have had tragedy in their life and are struggling with their sense of self-worth. That what we can do as Christians is we can put a touch of Jesus' faith upon those people, and we can restore them to a sense of self-dignity and self-wholeness. And that's about the best we can do, but that's what Jesus wants us to do each and every day. Amen.